It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Of course. It's great to meet you as well.
So let's begin our journey into your life and your work by asking you this. 5 years ago, the pandemic started. We went into the unknown, and all of us are changed now that we came out of it. How much of living through that time period has reverberated into the work and the way that you live your life today?
Yeah, I feel like before the pandemic, everybody had very successfully made me believe that like my team needed to be like somewhere close to me. That way I could like see them and touch them and stuff like that. The pandemic really showed me that that's a complete hoax. Um, Not true in any way, shape, or form. Every business that's trying to get everyone to come back into the office is just trying to complete their leases. That's literally it. It's just the overhead costs, and they're just going, okay, well, here it is. I've learned that the best talent comes from anywhere on the planet at any time. So that really helped, especially during that time. Everybody was already online, so getting staff to like kind of get into the board of like, okay, let's work from home now instead of being in an office was a lot easier. And now we see that in the company now. So like our entire team, we're gonna be 10 probably by the end of this month.
Yeah.
Everyone's remote. There's only one Canadian employee, one American employee. Everybody else is like everywhere else, and I just don't care. Because like for me, again, it's I want the best. I don't care what time zone you're in. I don't care about any of the other random little things that other employers care about. I just want you to show up to work, get your job done, and then leave. Like, don't need to put in extra hours, don't need to do extra work. Just do what you're supposed to do and
Yeah.
just go. And the pandemic really helped, like, kind of focus that in for me, where I think it probably would have been a lot harder to get to this place had it not happened.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that philosophy. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. And to do that, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids, grade schoolers, 10, 11-year-olds. It's career day, and the curious kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
So I run an online advertising agency. So essentially what that means is that we figure out what your customer is searching for, what they kind of look like in terms of what they do in their day-to-day life, what things that they're interested in, those kind of stuff. And then we basically just present ads in front of them in the hopes that eventually at some point that they'll actually convert. And then we take the information that we learn from that and actually apply it into our strategy. So that way we can be even more effective as we continue. Um, so I don't know. I think that might be a little over the head for 10-year-olds. I'm not too sure.
No, I think they're savvy enough to know that the backbone of all of this is advertising, whether it's through Facebook or Google or YouTube. There's always going to be some level of that. So I think, yeah, I
Yeah, I
just
feel like I didn't give 10-year-olds enough credit because I'm thinking about it from when I was 10 year
right.
olds, and this would have been like over my head.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What is the internet? And now it's a completely different ballgame. So, yeah, maybe I'm not giving 10-year-olds enough credit.
But it's interesting though, like I'm a Gen Xer, and there's a lot of jobs that exist in the world right now that no one could have even fathomed back in the 90s
Mhm,
or early
mhm.
2000s. Like you make money off YouTube. I mean, you make money off of people clicking and just those kinds of things. You mean podcasting? What is that? Is that broadcasting? What does that mean? And you can make money on that. It's like those ideas and even those professions literally didn't exist.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was even thinking about influencers just the other day, and I was like,
Yeah.
what a crazy world that like even I remember like even a couple years ago, I was like, is this even a career? Like, can people actually do this? And now you see it and you're like, oh, these people are actually with intention starting social media accounts and going, I'm going to be an influencer one day. And I was like, holy smokes, I never really saw that coming.
Well, it's interesting you said up front when we were talking about, you're in Canada, I'm in America, and the power of manipulation and how people believe things and the campaigns that were run. And it's just like that. It's like it's the power of manipulation. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like we can manipulate on a massive level with the product placement very quickly.
Very, very, very quickly. We've seen that everywhere. Even like if we go back to our MTV days, like they used to have them in the music videos all the time. Like I remember sitting there counting at some points because it used to turn into like a random little game of like who paid for this.
Uh-huh.
And now it's just like the same thing where even though Instagram has like those checks and balances of like you have to put that this is sponsored content and all that stuff, but like who exactly is checking? So
Yeah.
like at this point, like there's so many other tinier influencers who don't know what the regulations are or what the policies are, and they're going off and just being like, yeah, I use this product every single day, when in reality that they're not. They're getting paid for it. So it's just kind of interesting to now live in a world where like it like that figuring out what is real and what is fake is now in a different lens. Where like before it used to be like just music videos for me. I used to like just hone in on that. And then eventually it was movies and then all that other stuff just because I guess I was interested in advertising my entire life, really. But now I look at it and I'm like, which ones are real and which ones are fake? And I can't tell the difference anymore, which is the
Yeah,
scary part. So I'm like
it
sitting there, I'm
is.
like, so what do I buy? Like, who do I listen to?
Yeah. You know what's weird about it is the advent of AI. And my son's on the spectrum. So he's a big basketball fan. And the other day he pulled up a clip with Steph Curry at a press conference. And he was saying things that were like, I'm disappointed. I want to get traded. I want to team up with LeBron. And I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm just looking at a TikTok. I said, that's AI. That is not happening. Like Steph Curry would never say one of those things. And now it's happening with these kids. They're seeing these like, AI driven things. And we would have never imagined that would have happened.
That one I really was not on my bingo card in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form.
Yeah.
And it's just always really interesting because like I'll follow other like fitness is a really big thing for me these days. The last couple of years I've been really, really honed in on like just kind of amplifying my physical and my mental state. So obviously I follow a lot of fitness influencers and even there it's just like interesting that there's like people who are posing, not even people, it's AI posing as doctors and going, hey, I'm this kind of doctor. And then 4 days later, they're a different doctor and nobody's catching on, which is like the weird thing.
Yeah.
And then if you look at their link in bio, it's an affiliate to go somewhere
Yep.
to like buy an Amazon thing. So then you're sitting there and you're like, okay, so like at what point do we, and this might sound a little harsh, but like at what point do we call the consumer a complete idiot?
Yeah.
Like, how are you not able to put these pieces together? If you're following this account, you're following this account. You should have some kind of knowledge of who this person is, what they do. And if they're changing it and saying now that they're the top rated butt surgeon or something like that, like what exactly is a butt surgeon first?
Right.
And like just ask questions. I just want
Yeah.
people to ask questions. And I'm finding that the generation now isn't um it's just that there's just so much information. I think that they've forgotten how to ask questions where like
Yeah.
that was something that we were really told to do when we were
Yeah.
younger was like ask why. And
Yeah.
that's constantly whatever, anytime anything happens, even within my company, I'm like, why? And they'll say an answer and I'm like, why? And I just keep on going until I'm like, let's get to the root of it. Tell
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Until you can say, I don't know, and you have to sit there and really think about it. I'm like, then we haven't done our jobs properly. And
Yeah.
I worry about this side of the generation where I don't think they're going to ask enough questions.
Which is why I think we're getting into the political fixes that we're in. I think it's so easy to just throw things out, whether it's truthful or lying, to make people believe it so that people in power can get what they want. It's happened over and over again. But like you said, we are in information oversaturation. Like people are so assailed by so much that it's like our brains are just swimming most of the time in things trying to grab a buoy.
And the algorithms don't really help either, right? Like
Yeah.
they're basically confirmation bias or an echo chamber in itself. And like I understand why they are that way. I can't like I can fault them, but at the same time I can't because like how else is it supposed to operate then, right? Like at that point you're never gonna get personalized content to you, so then you're not gonna stay on the app much longer. So then at
Yeah.
that point I'm like looking at it from a business standpoint, going, yes, this makes sense. And then I look at it from like a societal standpoint and I'm like, but you guys are part of the problem. You're not
Yep.
the solution. So then that's always really interesting because I sit there, I go back and forth and I'm like, I don't know which one's better. So then for me, just knowing how it is, I just essentially curate my feed the way that it needs to. So like I've almost taken all politics off of my Instagram at this point just because I'm like it just brings me down to a place where I get either get really really anxious or I get really really angry.
Yeah.
So I'm like I'd rather reserve that time for me to go out and actually search for those articles than for them to show up in my feed at 9 p.m. when I'm trying to get like nice and ready for bed and now
Yeah.
I'm just amped up ready for a fight, right? Like it's one of those things, but like I just don't feel that we're currently teaching kids or teenagers or even other adults to do the same thing. Just remove
Yeah.
it from your feed. If it's
Yeah.
pissing you off, just take it out. Eventually, the algorithm will figure it out and it'll stop doing it for you.
Yeah.
And then you're just significantly happier. At least I feel like I am. Like my mental clarity is significantly better than it was towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just like one simple little fix that I've made.
Yeah. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream life?
Oh my gosh. I honestly, I feel like I just like popped around from career to career when I was younger in my head. And it's
Yeah.
almost kind of funny because I kind of do that still now in my head too, where I'm like, one day I'm going to be this and one day I'm going to be that.
Huh?
So in grade three, I probably wanted to be like a doctor or something. In high
Yeah.
school, I told everybody I wanted to be an international spy. That
Okay.
was really, and I actually seriously considered it for a little bit, and then it just like never worked out. But the one thing that I remember very clearly, especially in high school, is that all my friends actually knew that I'd end up here, which is kind of interesting. They always
Yeah.
knew that I'd end up with a business in some way.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was you're going to buy McDonald's, and then you're going to buy another, and then you're going to buy another, and then you're just going to rule the world, was like kind of the whole joke at that point because I loved Pinky and the Brain
Yeah.
so much that they were like, you're the brain. Like that's just it, right?
Yeah.
And then years later, when I actually started my own company, I just sat there and I'm like, holy smokes, like these people actually saw it before I did. Like for
Yeah.
me, it was just a joke. And for them, I'm like, it was actually almost a little serious. So, um, yeah, I don't have a straight answer for grade three. I think it might have been a doctor, but I'm not entirely sure.
So what were the foundational seeds that were planted into you that made you business savvy, entrepreneur thinking, and advertising? How did all those become you?
I think the start of it all was just a natural inclination for it. Like I
Yeah.
remember having like lemonade stands. I remember telling my brother and the neighbor kids to grab all the cookies from the cupboards, and then we went door to door to sell them to like our neighbors, like store-bought cookies. We thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
And like my neighbors were so sweet and wonderful. They were like, "Yeah, here's like 20 cents for one." One lady gave us like a whole jar of like freaking coins. We were so excited.
Yeah.
And I think that was just kind of it, just us being like just silly little kids. And then eventually for me, it kind of just fell into place. And I think I've always kind of always been like a little bit of a natural leader. I like taking control of things and just
Yeah.
like organizing everything and then being like, okay, you guys decide what we do from here on. But like at least I've set us up. Um, so I feel like it was just my natural, just how I'm naturally like I just I think my skill set just in a natural sense fits really really well with being a business owner because I just
Yeah.
set everything up at the start of the day for everyone and I'm like go run do your thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah. So who's been that inspirational force for you, that heroic figure?
Oh gosh, there's just so many. I feel like if we look at it from like an early age side point, I would say like obviously my parents really at this
Yeah.
point, like they were immigrants. My mom worked two jobs. My dad did 16-hour days for 6 days a week. I saw them put it in like that time. And the reason was that so they didn't have to tell my brother and I no ever. So anytime like my mom would be like, no, you can't get that iPod, I'd go over to dad and he'd be like, yeah, it's fine. I'll just put in an extra day.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like it was always like that. And I think that for me, that's where like the work ethic comes from. So I think maybe even going back to the question of like how did I know or what are the characteristics of being like a business owner? I think it's really came from them. It's
Yeah.
just that I always knew that my mom always wanted to start a business and then she never really got to. I knew that my dad is a taxi owner, so in technicality he's a business owner, but like they don't operate like what we see as businesses. So I
Yeah.
was always kind of around that. And I feel like it was just watching them just sitting there going, okay, like my mom has this dream. I could potentially make that happen. My dad does this. Now I'm learning that like this is what it takes to put a like to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I would say those two
Yeah.
probably are probably like the beacons for me, and then obviously just random people, not even random people. I shouldn't call them random. Very significant people in my life along the way as well.
Sure. So when we look at the world of entrepreneurs, who is somebody that you think is doing it right that maybe you would like to meet, spend a little time with them to see how they really operate?
Oh my gosh. Oh wow, that's a really good question. I'm a big fan of Bill Gates. Like,
Okay.
so, like I think he's probably one of the right people to be that rich. I mean, to a certain degree, I
Sure.
think he could have done a lot more good with that money, but like the amount of good that he has done so far is really, really cool. Like I'm pretty sure he's eradicated polio at this point. Like,
Yeah.
what a cool thing to be able to say. Like,
Yeah.
just it's absolutely crazy to me to see that side of billionaire doing like the things that they're supposed to be doing, and then seeing the other half of the billionaires, and you're just like, "Ugh." So I think if I had my choice, I think I would go with Bill Gates just because I'm really just his brain truly is kind of like a computer.
Yeah.
And it's just so fascinating to me that I would really love to just kind of get a little bit of an inside peek into it.
Have you seen that series on Netflix? It's like a 4 or 5 parter on him.
Oh yeah. I anything he drops, I'm all
Crazy.
over it.
Yeah, like the amount of reading he does and just the amount of information he ingests is insane.
He's
Just
the reason why I read as much as I do now. Because I was like,
yeah,
I wanna, if I could be like 1 millionth of Bill Gates, I would be significantly
yeah,
happy.
yeah,
So for me, I'm like, okay, if he reads, I think he reads like a book a week or something, like 52
yeah,
books a year or something like that. I'm like, if I could just do 23,
yeah.
I would be so happy with
Uh-huh.
myself. So
Yeah,
that's been my goal year after year now. It's just to hit 23 books. I'm like, one day it'll be 20, or one year it'll be 24, and then 25 and 26. And I'm like, eventually I'll get to 52.
yeah,
And then maybe my wealth will be somewhat remotely close to
right.
his. I don't know.
You never know. So, obviously with someone like Bill Gates, you have to have a balance between work life and personal life. What is it that gets you up every day, and how do you balance this life as an entrepreneur and then take care of your own self, your own soul?
Oh gosh. If you asked me this a couple of years ago, my answer probably would have been like, I have no idea. But like I've gone through enough burnout cycles now that I've kind of realized that rest is definitely important. So I just have non-negotiables. Weekends are no work unless it's absolutely and utterly necessary. And even there, it's just like I need to be in a position where I'm genuinely screwed. Like if I don't get it done. Otherwise, I'm not working on the weekends. Every third Thursday now is a day off. Admittedly, I'm not the best with that one either, but small steps, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
I'll sign in the morning, kind of just check in with the team, and then the rest of the day I try to go off and just like enjoy myself. We do a couple weeks off for the holidays and taking stats off and stuff like that. So it's just more or less of more rest time for me. Because like my work is predominantly based on what I can create in my brain. So if I'm constantly overworking the one muscle that I need, I know that I'm not going to get very far. So it's really just taking the time to obviously take the rest, but then also sleep. So I'm in bed by 9:30, 10 p.m. every single day. Hopefully my eyes are shut by about 10:30. I'm up by 6:30 the next morning, and it's exercise, reading, a little bit of journaling, some affirmations, that whole self-care routine. So now it's
Yeah.
just more or less of just maintaining that instead of like making sure that I have to do these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, it's just like waking up every morning, just saying that I'm a priority and
Yeah.
then actually showing myself that. Because the one thing that I've realized, especially in therapy and stuff like that, is that our brains are just like our hands. It's just a muscle that we need to learn to control.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always waking up in that morning, just going, yeah, like this is like I care for myself. This is how I show it.
Yeah.
And then it just naturally just becomes a thing. So now it's just second nature to me. Like every Monday I go to the gym. I know
Yeah.
that. I'm in my gym clothes underneath like this right now.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to the gym. So it's just those little checks and balances of just being like, okay, this is a non-negotiable. This is how I show myself I care. This is how I don't. And then you're able to kind of create a routine pretty easily.
So in the world of business, everybody knows you in a certain way. Like family and friends know you different. So if you
Hmm.
were to walk into a room with all of the colleagues, people that you've worked with, clients that you've affected over the years, and you walked up to a podium and you could tell them something really fun about you, a fun story, a fun fact they may not know, what fun anecdotal story or what would you tell them?
Oh my gosh. It's a fun story about me. I feel like I'm just so boring these days. It's so hard to think of like really, really fun stories. I feel like for me, it's just I think a lot of clients don't really understand like my commitment to everything, where like it's such a commitment that I actually don't book travel until like I'm like 5 days out.
Yeah.
Like I need to be absolutely and utterly sure that I'm going. And I don't think a lot of clients think about those things where I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable enough until it's like 5 days out to leave because I don't know what's going to happen with work,
Yeah.
right? So like a lot of them obviously know that I love what I do for a living and that like this is everything to me, but like I don't think they actually understand at what degree I actually love everything and then I'm like kind of paranoid about leaving things. So yeah, if you look at my track history, more often than not, even though telling everybody I'm like, yeah, I'm leaving for a week and I'm only doing like a week prior to my out of office, they're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you must have been waiting so long. And I'm like, no, it was just
Yeah.
about a week ago. Like when I
Yeah.
put my out of office on was the day I booked my ticket. And then it's
Yeah.
always really shocking to them because they're just like, oh, you really travel like that. And I'm like, I have to be 100% sure that I can leave.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to leave our clients in the lurch.
Yeah.
So I take it that seriously. So I feel like that might be something interesting that
Yeah.
they find. Yeah.
For sure. So, of everything that you've done and accomplished and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
Oh my gosh. Oof. That's a really good. I've probably my team. I would
Yeah.
say I think I've got a really good team. There's a couple kinks that we just need to work out, but like the people are solid.
Yeah.
Like the people are just kind of like I like to say that they're my brand of crazy because
Yeah.
I constantly have to yell at them for not working on the weekends or over hours and stuff like that, very much
Yeah.
like how I had to do with myself. And I like that I get to do that now, that I have to sit there and be like, I love that you love being here. I love that you love your job. I don't want you to burn yourself out. You have to take a break.
Yeah.
And I feel like in that, it also creates just a really cool culture. So yeah, I would say my team. They allow me to take those days off whenever I need them too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your
Mhm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm pretty direct. No fluff. Just get straight to the point. I understand, like I'm an understanding person to a certain degree, especially if things are outside of your control. But if you're, let's say you're a client who just like doesn't really listen or doesn't really do much, like my director of sales and marketing likes to call me Mama Bear, which is a little awkward in my mind, but like he's just like, yeah, we need to throw you in there and just kind of rip them into shreds. So like there's kind of this two sides of me where it's just like, okay, let's get straight to the point and like I'm just gonna take it. But then at the same time, there's like this side of me who actually truly does understand just because I am a business owner, right? So
Yeah.
I do know that sometimes anxiety gets in the way and that sometimes your staff gets in your way and sometimes there's personal stuff that gets in the way. So yeah, I think there it's just like the two sides of me I think really work really well where it's just I can understand, but I also can kind of tear you a new one at the same time.
Yeah. The yin and yang, I get it. So let me ask you this. You talked about travel. Where's your favorite place to travel to?
Oh my gosh. I'm a big fan of Mexico right now. It's
Okay.
very quick, it's very easy. You don't really need to pack a lot of things. You don't need to worry about a lot of things, especially if you're on a resort, then it's just
Yeah.
easy life and that's my favorite because I just like packing my bag
Yeah.
going and being like, okay, now I don't have to worry about my food. I don't have to worry about my exercise. I don't have to worry about extra like things that I need to do because like they'll have their activities on the resort. And if I want to do something extra, then it's just a matter of doing that.
Yeah.
So I really like that. And I usually tend to feel pretty safe in Mexico, which I do know is a little bit of like a privilege statement to a certain degree because I know that some people don't necessarily feel that safe. But
Sure.
for me, it's kind of great. I really like Mexico right now.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If anyone wants to reach out, hire you, learn more, any other good business, where's the best place to go?
So I am the AdWords girl everywhere on the internet.
Okay.
But if you're looking to learn more about paid ads, more so, I would say LinkedIn and Instagram are a great place. If you're running ads right now and you're kind of going, oh, I don't know if they're working the way that they should be, we do have a free audit that we're doing for actually most of our podcasting. Actually, I was just like, it'd be kind of a nice little offer for our podcasters.
Yeah.
So it's hopskipmedia.com/free dash audit.
Yeah.
So then you just kind of apply for one and then we will ship something over to you and you can kind of figure out if you're on the right track or not.
Okay. So before you get out of the door here, being somebody that's in advertising, I want to pitch something. I've thought
Mhm.
about this for years and I can't believe that it's not actually real. What if they had a channel called the Commercial Network and it was all commercials and they would have blocks like during Super Bowl time, it would be all the Super Bowl ads. During other times, it would be like soap opera weekend and all of the ads. But then advertising would be on the commercial channel. So it would be like the snake like feeding into its own self. And people could like talk to creative people like how did you come up with the chuck wagon thing, who thought in their right mind to have a whole chuck wagon going through the kitchen, or who was the one that said that Mikey would eat everything, who the hell is Mikey, like you know what I'm saying, if we could like do that, I really want to see this happen.
It would actually, yeah, I was just thinking about it. I was like, when you initially started talking about like, well, isn't that like kind of like QVC where it's just like an ongoing commercial for everybody? But if it's actually like commercial,
Right.
yeah, that would actually be kind of cool. Because I know like as Canadians on our side, like we're desperately trying to get to the American Super Bowl ads. Like
Yeah.
we want to see what everybody did because
Yeah.
we only get a fraction of them, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them are the Canadian ones, which are fine, but like we're talking about budgets, Americans
Yeah.
have significantly more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we want to see what the big guys came up with, and oftentimes we have to wait for it to come onto like social or YouTube and stuff like that. It'd be really nice to have it on a channel
Yeah.
so that way, yeah, we could all talk about that. That would actually, yeah, that's actually a really cool idea.
Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
One
So,
day, one
yeah,
day.
absolutely. This has been fascinating. Thank you so much. I appreciate your story, your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.